There is a dark side to Instagram that many of you have never seen. In this video, I'm exposing all of its secrets. I've spent the last week of my life researching the rancid, deep diving on the disturbing, and uncovering the unthinkable. And it's all down here on the controversial Instagram moments iceberg. From a former Disney Channel star doxing children to the Cut for Zayn movement, let's go down the darkest Instagram iceberg. In case you don't know how an iceberg chart works, it's a way of ranking information whereby the most common knowledge and light-hearted entries are on top, and the most dark, disturbing, and niche entries are on the bottom. So as we go down this iceberg, things will get a lot more disturbing and niche. This iceberg was created by Lily Stration on the r/iceberg chart subreddit, so shout out to her. With that said, I hope you're sitting comfortably, because this is going to be a long one, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, let's begin. So I'm just gonna fly through tier 1 because these are generally not obscure or dark in any way whatsoever. These are just very common knowledge things about Instagram that if you have the app, you should probably know. So for example, it's just common knowledge things such as Cristiano Ronaldo is the most followed person on the platform, that for a time, an egg was the most liked picture on the platform as a protest against Kylie Jenner. World Record Egg has over 60 million likes, but it was recently taken over by Lionel Messi after his World Cup win. We also have entries such as algorithm, fan accounts, threads, reels, and memes. These are all things that you can find on Instagram. The algorithm dictates what's shown, fan accounts pay homage to a person or property, threads is Instagram's take on Twitter, reels is its take on TikTok, and memes, I mean, do I have to explain memes to you guys? They're internet jokes. The next entry though is a lot more interesting. This is Paige Neiman, who you could easily mistake as Ariana Grande. The two have a tremendous amount of resemblance. The 21-year-old has a huge following, likely in part to her looks, and it's caused quite a bit of beef between herself and Ariana Grande, who's called it bizarre. And it only got worse after Neiman decided to start an OnlyFans. There were questions raised about consent and ethics. Like, if you had a twin or a doppelganger do OnlyFans, and you knew that people only subscribed to them because they look just like you, is that fair? There's definitely a good dialogue to be had about it, so let me know down in the comments, what do you think? But whatever you think, we're moving on to tier 2 now. I told you guys, I'm just blitzing through tier 1. There are 10 tiers on this iceberg, so we need to go through them fast in order to get down to the depths. First up, we have unauthorized camera access. This is referring to a lawsuit filed against Instagram for violating the privacy of its users. In September 2022, the platform was also sued for violating children's privacy. It allowed for under 18s to create business accounts which made their data, so their phone numbers and emails, public. Which makes me question the scale and severity in which they were doing it, if that staggering figure was the cost. And you've got to imagine that Instagram has some very well paid lawyers, so for them to still get caught out on it, I have to imagine that the severity on that is more than you would think. Mummy bloggers. So this one is fairly self-explanatory. These are mothers on Instagram that make content centered around motherhood and raising children. But the reason that this could be considered controversial is that just like with family channels, content centered around children can be seen as exploitative. Also, many have been exposed in the past for faking what their life is really like, and finally, many of them have very traditional values, which some people don't like. Oh, and don't worry by the way, we're going to get into specific cases of mummy bloggers further down the iceberg, and let me tell you right now, some of these women, there's one or two in particular, are up there with the most reprehensible people I have ever heard about on the internet. I kid you not. Onion rings worldwide. This was a secret Instagram account where the owner of it rated all of the onion rings that they tried while they were traveling around the world. It ran from May 2017 until October 2021, and as it turns out, this Instagram account was owned by none other than the singer-songwriter Lorde. Not really disturbing, but it's definitely a cool fact. One that's definitely not that well known, to be fair. Nipple ban. So this is referring to the fact that female nipples are not allowed on Instagram, except for in one very specific case that we'll get to later. This has led to several instances of controversy, one of which I spoke about in one of my earliest Book of the Ban videos, the one coincidentally about Instagram, where an artist was banned from Instagram for showing nipples on a drawing. And the drawing was not sexual in the slightest. If you were one of the freaky people that got off to that, you would need to be chemically fixed. Whatever the case, some people have found it unfair that men can show nipples on there, but women can't. On a similar note, @Feminist is an Instagram account that's come under fire in the past for posting colorist and misandrist content. Feminism in general can be controversial depending on who you talk to. Some people think that fourth wave feminism has gone too far, others think that it's not gone far enough, and to some people there's a fine line between pro-woman content and anti-men content. It's possible that the feminist Instagram account has tiptoed over the line in the past. At least that's what the original creator of the iceberg says. I do think it's interesting though, because if you have the @feminist Instagram handle, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the most qualified person to talk about feminism and feminist issues. I think it just means that you got there first. So there's definitely a potential that the person who runs the account isn't actually the best advocate for feminism, especially these days where it seems as though the factions are just so split. J.K. Rowling, for example, would call herself a feminist, whereas other people would very much not. Feminists these days have such ranging views on the world, it's not a monolith. They're not all the same. And that makes the account even more likely to be a hot potato because not even every feminist will agree with what it has to say. But from gender rights to racial rights, BLM is our next talking point. And this entry is referring to Blackout Day in response to the 2020 BLM movement. If you can remember, people were posting a black square up to their Instagram and doing the BLM hashtag, but this has received some heavy criticism ever since. Firstly, some people call this slacktivism, which is a portmanteau of slack and activism. Essentially, some people argue that posting a black square to your Instagram didn't actually do anything to help the cause. Some people were doing it just to hop on a trend. Secondly, doing the BLM hashtag was perhaps a misstep because it was clogging it up. A lot of people were sharing important information at the time that was being drowned out by black squares. We're down to tier 3 now, and things are about to get very dark very fast. From onion rings to pedo rings, let's discuss pedophilic reels. For very obvious reasons, there are certain things in this iceberg that I will not be able to show, so you're gonna have to watch this ugly mug as I explain it to you instead of show it to you, which is probably for the best anyway. But pedophilic reels refers to the fact that there is pedophilic content on reels if you look far enough. Sometimes it's just uploaded by adults, and other times it's uploaded by minors themselves. Considering that the minimum age to sign up to Instagram is 13, if you're between 13 and 17 and you upload a reel, literally anyone in the world can see that, including pedos. And on a similar note, let's discuss Balenciaga's controversial Instagram post. If you've never heard of this before, the fashion brand faced a scandal in late 2022 after posting images of teddy bears in what's been described as BDSM gear. Children were holding these bears, and considering that there's been a bit of an outcry in recent years about the world being too sexualized and children being exposed to it earlier and earlier, it wasn't a good look for the brand. Right-wing groups in particular were making conspiracy theories about it, and Balenciaga had to make a quick apology. Let's stay specific for a moment to discuss Lovely Peaches, who is an Instagram influencer who seems to detest her own baby. She's been given the chilling moniker, the TikTok star who faked her baby's death, given that a few years ago, she, well, faked her baby's death.
So as everybody knows, March 1st of 2018, I had a beautiful baby girl named Cora Miracle. Cora Miracle is no longer with us. I'm getting that out there. She's dead, so I don't understand why we're still thinking about it, but we are, because when you have a child, it's hard to kind of just forget them. You're always going to think about them, but I'm getting over it. You know, I'm living life. You know, she's gone, whatever. So Cora Miracle is dead, and the situation is just over, but I thought I'd do one last goodbye, one last let go. So Cora Miracle, I'm sorry, it's hard not to smile and be serious because I am kind of happy that I no longer have to worry about a child. I'm a little sad, but I'm more happy than sad because I no longer have to worry about her.
Lovely Peaches, real name Brittany Johnson, has said some absolutely abhorrent things in the past. She said that she had hired a man to rape Charli D'Amelio.
We're trying to find her current location, so if you have it, please send it to me. Fan pages, if you have it, DM it to me. But I paid him. He's gonna rape Charli D'Amelio's ass, so she better have security because he's gonna bend that hoe over. It's Lovely Peaches, and I found the perfect 30-year-old man, black man, that's gonna rape the fuck out of Charli. Hello?
All right, I am.
Did you get the pictures of the girl's body?
Hell yeah, I love it.
He gonna f the shit out of Charli. If y'all know where Charli is located, leave her location in the comments below.
But perhaps even more disturbingly, she said that she had abused her own baby and allowed people to do unspeakable things to it.
I hope you seeing this from hell. Your mama don't even miss you, bitch. I'm happy you gone. That's why you was arrested and beat at only 4 months years old, ho.
She was arrested in 2019 for spraying perfume in her dog's eyes, and there have been several petitions made over the years to have Cora taken away from her mother. In fact, news spread back in 2020 that Cora had been removed from her clutches after an FBI investigation. There's a rumour that Britney's parents now have custody of Cora, but to the best of my knowledge, this is unconfirmed. The more you dig into Lovely Peaches, the more you realise that the rabbit hole keeps on going. It's tough to say how much of what she says is actually true. Very rarely would you find someone who would speak such obscenities about their own daughter. To even say that about your own infant child is truly monstrous. Her Instagram is still active to this very day, but nowadays she seems to make thirst traps that make me want to bleach my eyes out. Sticking with controversial Instagram mothers, Acacia Kersey is up next, and she is despised by a lot of people online because of her treatment of one of her children. You see, her child called Rosie was diagnosed with Alagille syndrome, which is an inherited condition in which bile builds up in the liver because there are too few bile ducts to drain the bile, resulting in liver damage. Well, over the past few years, many people have noticed that Acacia might be neglecting Rosie. Several posts have been made to Reddit that document a long history of alleged neglect and abuse. For example, it's said that she shaved Rosie's head, that she's often left unsupervised, that she isn't given the stimulus that a young child needs, that Acacia smokes weed in front of her kids and might expose them to secondhand smoke, and that she once put a video including her child Rosie on her OnlyFans account. Now let me quickly clarify that this was not an explicit video or anything, but it's still not exactly appropriate to put on OnlyFans. Then there's the plain fact that parading your child around online who has no choice in the matter is generally seen as exploitative. Just like the Lovely Peaches rabbit hole, the Acacia Kersey one also goes very deep. Perhaps one day I'll take on these cases in more detail, so let me know down below if you'd like to see that. Keep in mind that this is only the third tier. We still have 7 more to go, which means that things are only going to get worse 7 times over. So let's kick tier 4 off with the Sky Jackson doxing, and I have to be honest with you guys for a second. This is probably my favorite story of the entire video. This is so funny to me. It's been 5 years and I still cannot believe that this happened. If you don't know who Sky Jackson is, she's a former child actress, probably best known for starring in the hit Disney Channel show Jessie. Over the past few years, however, she has been infamous for a wide range of controversial incidents, like doing some sort of weird lottery to try and earn a buck from her followers, and then said that she wasn't broke or anything, she just wanted to do some sort of raffle.
It is not that serious for a damn $5. It is called a raffle. I don't know if you guys have been to school before, but I know I've been to school, and we used to have raffles all the time where a ticket might, but it's a physical ticket. You might get put in $5, $2, whatever, and you get a prize. Like, people do raffles all the time.
On a more serious note, a little while ago she was arrested for domestic battery, but perhaps most infamous of all, she doxed a 12 or 13-year-old boy after he commented on an Instagram post of hers. This boy apparently said guacamole N-word penis. Next thing you know, she leaked all of his information, and this led to his father allegedly being fired from his job. Do keep in mind that this is only a rumour, it's not confirmed. That said, the argument against this behaviour was that the child was 13 years old. It's very likely that he didn't know the weight of the words that he was saying. And to many people online, the punishment didn't fit the crime whatsoever. Sky Jackson decided to double down and went even further though, asking her followers to send her instances of racism that they had encountered, and then she went on a massive doxing spree. The problem was that these screenshots weren't actually verified. She would go out and dox these people, detailing very personal things like addresses and schools. But she didn't actually know if this was photoshopped or altered, or if they actually did it. Therefore, there is a possibility that some people were just getting stitched up, maybe by their friends, and Sky Jackson, the former Disney star, was going through and revealing their personal information to the entire internet, including her hundreds of thousands of followers, which if you have a follow count that large, you just cannot be doing whatsoever, especially if you don't know if they actually did it, which she couldn't have known. N-word guacamole penis has now gone down as one of the strangest Instagram controversies of all time. But if you want to make sure it's harder for people to get a hold of your online information, then allow me to introduce you to CyberGhost VPN, the sponsor of today's video. A VPN is a virtual private network that hides your IP address, encrypts your data, and allows you to surf the web with no geo limitations. Essentially, it's a way of keeping your online information safe and your online data private. The VPN is very user-friendly and is available for all major platforms, including Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, smart TVs, gaming consoles, and Linux. And that's why over 38 million people already use it, accessing their servers located across 100 countries worldwide. Plus, you can use CyberGhost VPN on up to 7 devices at once, meaning that it's fun for the whole family. And better yet, if you use my code www.cyberghostvpn.com/foxakimbo, you get a whopping 83% off. So that's just $2.03 a month, plus 4 months free. On top of that, there's a 45-day money-back guarantee, meaning that signing up is risk-free. So if you're interested, head over to CyberGhost by scanning the QR code on the screen now, or simply use my link in the description. That's www.cyberghostvpn.com/foxakimbo. I'll also leave the link at the top of the comment section, so make sure to check it out. Thank you very much to CyberGhost for being the sponsor of today's video. And with that said, let's continue. The Eugenia Cooney ban petition. This entry is referring to the various Change.org petitions that have been created over the past several years that want to ban Eugenia Cooney from social media, including Instagram. In case you don't know her, this is Eugenia Cooney. She's an online figure that's probably best known for her appearance. She is extremely deathly thin, and she's been criticized in the past for being pro-anorexia. She doesn't seem to admit that being that thin is bad for her health. And the reason that some want to ban her is that her mere existence has the potential to negatively impact at-risk people. Many people use her as thinspiration, meaning that they want to look like her. Many pro-ED and pro-anorexia groups look to her, which is incredibly dangerous. On a similar note, I think that it's time that we discuss eating disorders in more depth. I might not be the perfect person to discuss this because I've never had one, so I don't know how it impacts a person mentally and physically. However, I have found several articles that discuss how eating disorders have become more common over the past several years, and how Instagram might have had a hand in that. Between 2011 and 2018, the BBC reports that ED was up 163%. You have to question yourself, what changed between that time? Perhaps it's a bit of an obvious answer, but social media really came into full force. It could very well be a leading factor. To be honest, my hypothesis is that it is, and I have to imagine that by now, 7 years later, that number of children with eating disorders is even higher than it was back in 2018. The BBC article also reports that it found evidence of children looking for pro-antibodies, which for those of you who don't know, pro-ana is pro-anorexia, and it also said that posts, hashtags, images, and search terms promoting and glamorizing eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia are very common on Instagram. All of this is to say that Instagram may or may not be pro-ED. Onto a bit of a less serious topic now, we have makeup scams. So this is one that I don't know for certain what the creator of the iceberg is actually referring to. That said, between me and you, I know several people that have been caught up in makeup pyramid schemes on Instagram, so it could be that. However, I have found several stories online of people that have been scammed by makeup brands. Apparently one of the most common ways is that the scammer will take a bunch of really high quality pictures of makeup so that you'll trust them, and then they put the makeup on their Instagram and put the price as really low. So maybe they'll say that it's on sale, or it's just less than what you would usually pay for that kind of makeup. And then after they receive a bunch of orders, they say that the makeup is on its way, but it's not actually. It's never going to arrive because it doesn't actually exist. After a short period of time, they delete the Instagram accounts and everything connected to it so no one can get back in contact with them, and then they just walk away with the cash. Doja Cat bed video. Everyone knows that Doja Cat is a little bit weird, right? I don't really listen to her music or anything. The only thing I know about her is that she's a bit of an oddball.
So, what was your inspiration for tonight? Be honest with me and go into detail.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And I think a lot of people criticize her because it seems like she just wants to be different. Well, a few years ago, she uploaded a video to Instagram. A video that she would very shortly after take down, and a video that I'm going to show you right now. Why she uploaded it and why she then subsequently took it down is a mystery to this very day. The Instagram influencer look. This is a reference to how Instagram influencers are said to all look like 99% the same. Today's society seems to push one ideal for beauty standards, and it's one that the vast majority of Instagram influencers all have. We're talking large lip fillers, Botox, face-tuned skin, and big breasts. These are all said to be the Instagram look. In the words of Neck Deep in their great song Happy Judgment Day, it's a shame, so fake, and you're all the same. To be honest, I don't think there's too much more to say about the Instagram look. If you have the app, you probably know what it is. With that said, we're keeping this breakneck pace with Tier 5. SpongeBob porn. Why? I mean, do you guys really want me to talk about this? Are one of you sickos getting after this or something? Yeah, some people draw
lewd images of SpongeBob characters,
and then they're so proud of their revolting creations that they decide to take a picture of it and then upload it to the internet for everyone to see. I don't know if I can show any of these pictures, but here's something to whet your appetite. I wrote the script for this video whilst I was on a train. If anyone looked over my shoulder and saw that I was writing a full-on script about SpongeBob porn, they must have thought I was an absolute maniac. Eating live octopus incident. This entry, I believe, refers to a Chinese influencer that went viral after an Instagram video of her eating a live octopus left her with facial injuries. I believe I've got the correct video here. It's got 14 million views, and it shows the octopus quite literally sticking to her face. She has to peel it off, and it's like dragging her skin with it. It looks really, really painful. I've spoken about the concept of eating live animals several times on the channel by this point. But it only makes sense that an animal is going to fight tooth and nail if it thinks it's in danger, which in this case it very clearly is. So injuries are only natural. On top of that, animal rights groups are said to have condemned the video for being cruel. Instagram confession accounts. If you've never encountered one of these, the gist is that people will send in their anonymous confessions, and then these confessions are posted by the account owner. So these confessions could be literally anything from admitting to cheating, to confessing that they want to commit literal atrocities, like drawing SpongeBob porn. A little while back, I followed an Instagram confession account from my old university, and it will post some of the most unhinged stuff I have ever laid my eyes upon. Usually it's just awkward sexual encounters and the like, but it's never known if the poster is being sincere, so if they admit to something like murder or sex crimes, it can be very taboo. Fat positivity. So we've already spoken about the opposite of this, which would be pro-ana content where people push and promote being anorexic. But there is another side of the coin, and that is fat positivity. That said, there are levels to this because fat positivity in itself is not dangerous, but it can get there. Content that says you should love yourself even if you're a bit chubby, or that you shouldn't beat yourself up over being a little overweight, is perfectly normal. But in this case, the entry is referring to Instagram accounts that try to make the claim that there aren't any problems that come with being morbidly obese, which isn't true. As the Iceberg's creator states within their explanation, there's nothing wrong with body positivity, but there have been quite a few obese/very plus-sized influencers who have died from heart disease from promoting their lifestyle. If you're into the more specific cases and accounts, this next entry is for you. Siobhan is down here on the iceberg because it's a fairly niche and slightly creepy account. Its gimmick is that it takes pictures of a decapitated Barbie's head in various places, such as in cereal, or in Doritos, or in gum, and that's literally the entire account. Or at least it was. Siobhan hasn't posted onto Instagram in over 5 years now. I've got to imagine that this is some sort of artistic account, but it's very mysterious. Posts before its sudden stop were extremely frequent, but all of a sudden, radio silence. If you're interested in Barbie content, then make sure to watch my video about the controversies of Barbie, which will be linked down in the description. As for this account, it's as much of a mystery to me as I'm sure it is to you. Moving on, LiveLeak reposts. Simply put, these are videos that people took from LiveLeak and then reposted onto Instagram. It seems to me that most of the internet seem to know that Instagram, specifically when it comes to Reels, is a lot less sanitized and a lot less moderated than most of the rest of the web. And years ago, before LiveLeak, an infamous shock website shut down, people would take videos from this website, often including people dying or getting hit by cars or getting injured or a whole other range of taboo things. They would take these videos and put them up onto Instagram. Between me and you, I know that a lot of shock content still gets put onto Instagram because I know someone whose entire reel feed is just filled up with people getting hit by cars. I have no idea why he keeps watching those videos, but he does. And to be honest, Instagram don't seem too concerned in shutting it down. But with that entry concludes tier 5, which means we're roughly halfway through this video, and I'd just like to take a moment to ask you that if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'm a fairly small channel in the grand scheme of things, so this would really help me out. I would appreciate it so much. Any like, any subscription is truly valued. Also, it makes sense that if you're still watching this, you're interested in Instagram, and I actually have an Instagram, so if you want to see more of me, make sure to go follow me there at FoxAkimbo. Finally, since I'm fully back on icebergs now, please let me know down in the comments if there's an iceberg chart that you'd like to see me tackle next. With that said, let's move on to tier 6. Things are immediately taking a turn for the dark. Tier 6 begins with one of the most upsetting entries that we have today, which is kids getting shot on Instagram Live. It's a sad fact, but this has happened in the past. In one case, in March 2022 in St. Louis, Missouri, a 12-year-old named Paris Harvey accidentally shot her cousin and herself while playing with a gun while on Instagram Live. In another instance, a 13-year-old named Malachi Hemphill did the same thing while he was live on Instagram, playing around with a gun when it fired, and he died as a result of it. I hope you guys don't mind, but I just don't want to spend too much time digging into these cases. At the end of the day, these are absolute travesties. It just breaks my heart that these kinds of things can happen. So for that reason, we'll move on. This is Hilary Duff. You might recognize her from such works as Lizzie McGuire, Cheaper by the Dozen, or A Cinderella Story. Well, she came under hot water for a bizarre reason back in May 2020. She posted what I assume to be a video up to Instagram. And in one of the photos, her, I'm assuming infant son, very young son, was fully naked with some sort of white stuff across his chest. I can't show the picture for obvious reasons, but it looks like maybe sun cream or mayonnaise. That's the kind of texture and consistency that we're talking. When people saw this, they immediately started accusing her of being a child predator, alleging the worst kinds of things. Duff responded on Twitter saying that the people that had these thoughts entered their minds needed their phones to be taken away. And the responses to this were generally split. Some people thought that she had the right to be mad, and the people that had a problem with this were the real dirty ones. On the other hand though, some people were still questioning, firstly, why did she have this naked picture of her son? Secondly, what was on him? And thirdly, why did she allow this image to get out onto the internet? Momo. So if you somehow don't know what this is, or in case you've forgotten, the Momo challenge went down in 2018 and it surfaced shortly after the Blue Whale challenge, which was a disturbing social media trend whereby its participants would engage in self-harm activities for 50 days, building up from mild actions and finally committing to it on day 50. Because of this, people were primed to be on alert for any reskinned versions. And then Momo came along. The idea was that Momo would DM the users and tell them to do a bunch of dangerous challenges, eventually getting them to commit. As it turns out though, like 99% of this was just moral panic. It's even called a hoax on its Wikipedia page. I think contextually, this was around the time of the Charlie challenge and Elsagate, so spooky stuff on social media, weird rabbit holes were quite popular. But let's be honest with ourselves guys, if this DMs you and tells you to commit seppuku, are you actually going to listen? I don't know how we didn't see it at the time, but of course not. Also, this is slightly unrelated, but I thought that I'd bring it up anyway because it really makes me laugh. When I was 16 years old, I used to work as a barista, and there were a bunch of other teenagers that used to work at this coffee shop. It was a real, child labor thing. And someone decided to change the email and email icon for our work email to a picture of Momo with her cleavage out, and they changed the name to Momo Spunk or something. And there was a whole investigation into who did this. This sounds like something I would have done at that age, but it wasn't me. And to this very day, I have no idea if someone hacked into the email and changed it, or if it was a worker who just thought it would be funny. I have no idea. Yeah, and by the way, Momo was just a sculpture from a Japanese special effects company, and it's since been thrown away. This one is just general Instagram law, states that ban filters. To be more specific, Illinois and Texas are the states in question. And you might be wondering, why? I would have assumed that maybe it was something to do with the blurring of reality and virtual reality. Personally, I don't think that social media filters are good for children and teenagers, unless it's dumb stuff like the infamous Snapchat dog filter, which doesn't exactly change your face to be more aesthetically pleasing. But instead, it was because these states alleged that Meta, the owner of Instagram, had misused biometric data. Essentially, it has to scan your face in order to add the filter, and these states thought that it was collecting facial recognition data without the consent of the user, which is against their laws. After a couple of days filterless, an agreement was come to, and the filters were once again allowed in Illinois and Texas. So with that, we're moving down the iceberg once more to Tier 7. First up to bat, we have Soliton. This is an Instagram account that I'd wager that you probably haven't seen before, and it's kind of spooky in a really cool way in my opinion, so I think that Tier 7 is a good fit for it. Essentially, this account posts weathered black and white images of humans without faces, and also some very strange, ominous, religious-looking pagan or Celtic vibe images. I can't lie, I think that these images, while slightly creepy, are really damn cool. There's no bad juju behind it, these are all just made by an artist who I assume is named Oleg Lim. I have no idea how he creates this art, but I can't lie, I f**k with it pretty hard. I'll link him in the description in case you want to check him out. Moving on, we're going back to the self-harm side of Instagram for a moment. This is a side of the platform that I had never seen before. It's time to discuss Cut for Zayn, an incredibly disturbing trend that took place back in 2015. If you haven't put the pieces together yet, the Cut for Zayn movement was encouraging fans of One Direction, so predominantly girls and young women, to harm themselves after Zayn Malik left the band. Reading of The National, this article written at the time states, youngsters began hitting Twitter and Instagram to express their dismay. However, messages of support and heartache for Malik soon took a more sinister turn as the hashtag Cut for Zayn began trending, and horror photos emerged from fans who appeared to have harmed themselves and were asking others to do the same. So people were taking to Twitter and Instagram and encouraging others to do this to themselves. And if you take a look on Google, you will see that this did actually happen. This was not a hoax. A very disturbing trend indeed. Moving on, I was considering cutting this next story out of the video entirely. But because of the Cut for Zayn story, if there was ever a time to include it, it would probably be now. Liam Payne's jet lag post was included in the iceberg. And for context, this iceberg was created before his sudden death in October 2024. Long story short, in early 2018, he posted this. It was a post saying that nobody has jet lag because they don't have jets. Instead, they have plane lag because they fly in planes. This post was deemed as cringy and elitist, and it was taken down shortly after. We have to keep moving down, and now we find ourselves fast approaching the depths of this iceberg with Tier 8. With this, I'm going to give you guys a verbal content warning. There are certain entries in Tiers 8 and 9 that are by far the most disturbing of the entire video. So let's begin Tier 8. Bianca Devins body posted. This entry is referring to the tragic murder of Bianca Devins. Back in July 2019, she was killed by Brandon Andrew Clark. It's said that the two of them had a contestable relationship. From what I found, it appears as though he wanted something more and she didn't see him like that. Leading up to the tragedy, she went to a concert in Utica to go see Nicole Dollanganger. However, police said that they believed the pair had gotten into an argument on the way back, possibly about her kissing someone else. And because of this, he fatally attacked her with a knife. Without going into specifics, he mutilated her, took pictures of her corpse, and spread them on the internet. These images began spreading like wildfire, specifically on Discord, Instagram, and 4chan, but also just about everywhere else. It led to a new law in the USA being introduced called Bianca's Law, which now made it a crime to repost images of people in traumatic situations. To be honest, I'm surprised it took this long for a law like that to be introduced. I don't think there's a single instance where reposting an image like that is at all acceptable. Bianca's Instagram is still active, and it shot up to 128,000 followers. The comments are open, and people use them to send their love and apologies. I think it's best that we cut the tension right now, so let's discuss Rachel Dolezal, who has one of the most curious cases that we have today. If you don't know who she is, you're in for a treat. She's the former president of the Spokane chapter of the NAACP, a civil rights organization formed in 1909, which stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. But her stint as a figurehead of the NAAPC came to an abrupt stop after she was exposed for not being black. These are her parents, probably two of the whitest people I have ever seen in my life. When she applied, she claimed that she was mixed race, but in fact she had just tanned her skin a bunch and used methods to give her hair black features. After she was exposed for being white, she was dismissed from her role as an instructor of Africana Studies at the University of East Washington. I have never seen more of a sleeper agent in my life. However, this is where things get a little bit murky, because maybe Rachel wasn't a sleeper agent, maybe she actually is black. Rachel then claimed that she was transracial, which is exactly what it sounds like. Though she was born white, she now identifies as black.
Let me just ask you the question in simple terms again, because you've sent mixed signals over the years. Are you an African American woman?
I identify as black.
And this opens up an entire can of worms, because to some people this makes sense. If being transgender is recognized in today's society, is it that far of a leap to say that transracial should be too? Especially if someone swears by the fact that they're a different ethnicity to how they're born. And do keep this in mind, if you think it's absurd, a generation or two ago people would have said the exact same thing about being transgender. Even today it still happens. So maybe this could be something that's much more commonplace in the future, but we're just born too early to not really understand it. To other people though, this is complete and utter hogwash. The main argument against it is that sex is natural. To transition between male and female or vice versa can happen because the concept of male and female is innate in nature. Race, on the other hand, is a social construct. If you stood me next to a Chinese man, we would be from different races. But we're only from different races because humans have drawn a line in the sand and said that we are. In terms of how this applies to Instagram, the creator of the iceberg said that she received a lot of criticism on there for cultural appropriation. The idea that she's stealing from a culture that isn't her own, in this case, black culture, and there have apparently been several attempts to delete her account. Having said that though, I personally have seen a lot of support for her on the platform, so maybe she's deleting comments, or maybe she's won people back over. To be honest, I'm considering making a full-on documentary style video on her, so do let me know down below if you'd be interested in seeing that. I think I've only scratched the surface on her, but we do need to move on so that this video doesn't end up being like 2 hours long. Breastfeeding tag filled with lesbian porn. If I'm not mistaken, this one's referring to the fact that if you look up breastfeeding on Instagram, you will find breastfeeding. It's very, very explicit. I thought that nipples were banned on Instagram. It seems as though they are. But if you're breastfeeding, I guess it doesn't count. There are treasure troves, literal treasure troves of women there with their tits out, with the baby drinking it. Like babies usually on the tits or breastfeeding. Now the problem is I can't show you guys any of these photos without this video getting sent to the shadow realm, so you're gonna have to trust me when I say this. I think that some of these photos are gratifying. That's what I think they're made for. I couldn't find any of this lesbian porn which is being referred to in this iceberg entry, but I do think that there is some sort of underground breastfeeding black market going on, because if you look it up, there's not only photos there, but also videos. And some of these videos have millions, or I kid you not, tens of millions of views. And I have to imagine that tens of millions of people, I don't think that's all coming from mothers. Can't lie. And this might be controversial, guys. I could get cancelled for this, but I'm gonna say it. I'll be the one to say it. I don't think this is right. I understand breastfeeding is part of nature, right? If you're gonna do it out in public, you're gonna do it out in public. However, I think there's a difference between breastfeeding out in public and taking pictures and videos of it and putting it on the internet. If you're doing it out in public, it's a one-time thing. If someone takes a video of that, they're getting sent straight to prison. But if you do it on the internet, there's a record of that forever. Someone can screenshot it and then it's completely out of your control. And because I'm pretty damn certain that this is somehow gratifying to some people, I don't think it's fair, especially considering that you've got a baby in there who wants no part of this whatsoever. They're just existing and their mum's taking a picture of them like that. They don't get a say in the matter. So while I didn't find anything about lesbians in the breastfeeding tag, I did find a very peculiar and slightly disturbing rabbit hole. So it's now time for the penultimate tier. This is tier 9. So kicking things off, this first one isn't necessarily that dark, and to be honest, I don't really know how obscure it is, but you'll see in a moment why it's this far down the iceberg. It's JB Pleasuring Woman livestream. Essentially, a few years back, Justin Bieber was doing a live stream and he added who I can only assume to be one of his fans to this Instagram live. And this was when one of the most insane things I have ever seen happened. The fan, as you can probably predict, was pleasuring herself. She was lying flat on her back, top half completely exposed, and she essentially she had pulled a reverse Dark Side Phil.
Oh, the camera's on. The camera's been on the whole time, huh? I don't even know.
As this was happening, Justin Bieber went to sip his drink, so he didn't see it, and he was wondering why she quickly ducked and hid.
Hello? Why are you hiding? This is weird. Alright, well, it's nice to meet you anyway. Have a good one.
Instagram is run by Nazis theory. So this is one that wasn't explained by the creator of the iceberg, and looking it up online, I couldn't find anything that really matched. But I interpret it as Instagram funneling people down the alt-right pipeline. In recent years, it appears as though the far-right have been able to find a foothold in the youth, as their content seems to be a lot more visible on social media. The idea is that people start watching content in milder forms, and they're eventually led down a path into more extreme beliefs. Instagram is one of the most popular social media platforms for young people, and therefore the idea could be that it's run by people who artificially push alt-right content to be seen, and therefore the alt-right pipeline is imposed by the makers of the app. In reality, this is very likely a conspiracy theory and isn't actually true. First things first, Instagram is owned by Meta, which is owned by Mark Zuckerberg. Listen to that name. I think it would be tough for someone who was raised in a Jewish household to be a Nazi, but hey, that's just me. Also, I think that right-wing content is much easier to spread than left-wing. Like, if you want to spread some sort of left-wing propaganda, what do? Maybe you share a video of workers being exploited or a greedy landlord being an ass? On the flip side though, if you want to share right-wing propaganda, literally just share a video of Bradford and you're already halfway there. But from the depths of the alt-right pipeline to the depths of this iceberg, it's time for Tier 10. On the topic of Nazis, I'll make this one quick. I have two words for you. Hitler fan page. According to the creator of the iceberg, it originated from 4chan after a group of 4chan users made a page for Hitler on Instagram saying that he did nothing wrong. But if the creator of the iceberg couldn't find it, the page might be down. It very likely is. But to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if something like this still exists. On a similar note, Genia Sivalova is another entry that I literally cannot find anything on. The creator of the iceberg alleged that they found something that said that Genia killed someone, but they couldn't find anything on it, and after extensive Google searches, neither could I. For our next account, we have Kayako with Toshio. To be honest, I don't know why this one in particular is so far down the iceberg. This is an Instagram account featuring the girl from The Grunge. This is one of Japan's most famous horror movies, but it seems as though she just took a bunch of pictures while on set in her costume. So while this account is maybe slightly creepy, to be honest, I think it's mostly funny. Then again, the account is fully in Japanese, so at least it's really obscure. Regardless, they could only take a certain amount of pictures in their costumes, and so the final post was in 2016. Donald Trump, NSFW fan page. What do you want me to say? So back in 2016, a comedian and rapper named Elijah Daniel made an erotic gay novel called Trump Temptations. He made it in a single night while drunk, and he got his Twitter followers to help him out. He then released it, and the book went viral. Articles were written about it, calling it the political 50 Shades of Grey. It ended up with Trump actually blocking Elijah, but long story short, someone, for some twisted reason, decided to make a fan page dedicated to the erotic novel on Instagram. I think that this page has since been erased because I can't seem to find anything about it, but this is a 9-year-old incident at this point, so there has been plenty of time for it to be deleted. That said, if you ever happen to find it, apparently it's just a bunch of Trump illustrations of him in a kinky, gay relationship. Okay, that's literally all I can take for today. I tap out. If you want to carry on watching my content though, I'm going to present you with two diverging paths. You could either take the blue pill and watch my video about banned Instagram accounts, or you could take the red pill and watch my recent iceberg about downfallen YouTubers. In this instance, there are no bad pills to take, so you gotta take one of them. Doesn't matter which one. I stand by both of these videos, so I guarantee that you'll enjoy them no matter which one you choose. Also, like, subscribe, follow me on everything, blah 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 blah. Aside from that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.